Today we're talking about the power of prayer. You stay with me. Thank you for joining me for Living and Perfectly Perfect. Today we're talking, like we have been for the last few weeks, about the power of prayer. We're talking about how sometimes you've got to just hold on to see your prayers answered. Remember, we talked about that last week. I've been teasing you for several weeks, telling you that I have a special guest coming, and today we have her. Yay! So in our studio today, I get to introduce you to our special guest. If you joined me last week, you know that I was telling her story just a little bit, and I told you that she has been praying for something really for the last 30-some years. Now, that's a long time to pray for something, isn't it? But remember, the first couple weeks ago, when we first started talking about prayer, we talked about how you have to be persistent in your prayers. And then last week, we talked about how sometimes you just have to hold on, believing through faith that God is going to answer whatever He's promised you. Today, we get to see the fruits of that, and I'm so excited. So without talking anymore, I'm going to introduce you to my special guest. She's very special because she's my cousin. She is actually a cousin that we used to be called Siamese cousins. We went through school together. We were in the same classes because we were in academically gifted classes, and so they had to put us in the same classes really from 6th grade on. So she was my closest friend, best cousin forever. So, and I get to tell you her story today. I'm excited. So this is Jenny Job Matkins. And so we're so excited to get to share. And I was telling my viewers a little bit last week about, I didn't give the specifics about who you were or what happened. So we get to do that today. I've just been telling them that you have been holding on to a prayer request for a really long time. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so when I was 16, I got some unexpected news that, you know, as a teenager you don't expect to get, but my parents told me that I was adopted. And it was a strange age to be told that, but they wanted me to hear it from them and not maybe some of my friends who I'd grown up with who might know. And so, of course, at 16, everything is dramatic and everything is 10 times worse than you really think it is. And it was a shock. And I remember having a wide range of emotions beyond shock, coming to church, and the church I'd grown up in since I was 5, and looking around and thinking, all of you people knew I was adopted. How have all of you kept this secret from me? How have I, lived this life that I thought was a certain life, but was not? It's that whole teenage thing. And after I was able to get over that shock, and then, a couple years later, really think about the whole concept of my parents bringing home this strange child that was not theirs, but they loved me like I was theirs from the beginning. They told my mother that she'd never have children, and so to understand that kind of love, that unconditional love, the same love Jesus shows us, for two people to show that to a child, it started, as maturity sets in, you start really understanding that whole thing. But in the back of my mind, I started praying, to find my birth family. Not that I was unhappy, not that I was missing anything in my life. I had a great life growing up, but it was just that not knowing and just finding that missing piece. So I started praying, because it was a closed adoption, And so it's almost impossible for families to be reunited, for children to be reunited with their birth families. It's almost impossible with closed adoptions. And so I told myself, my senior year of college, I was going to find my birth parents. And of course, there was never any time, and there's not any money as a poor college student. And so then, life just happens and you go on. But always I'm praying for some miracle, to find my birth family. And, I'm praying that I hope my mom went on to have a good life. The story I was told was that she was a teenager, of course, as most adoptions are. And I always prayed that she went on to have a good life and to be married and have more kids. And that was my prayer for her. And so I got married, and when my first child, when he turned 1, I had a little health scare, and I started thinking, I don't know what my medical history is, and maybe I should find that out. So,
wow. So Jenny has had this whole experience. Now, as we're talking about God answering prayers, I've always thought God brought Jenny into our lives because he gave me a ready best friend. So I consider her my blessing that he gave me from the time she came to our family when
I was 8 weeks old.
8 weeks old. So from the time we were very, very small till now, we've always been together. So I just feel like Jenny's my blessing that God gave her to me. Gave her to our family just for me. Is that selfish? That sounds so much like me, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But so in this whole thing, you've got a wide range of feelings, a wide range of emotions, I'm sure. So kind of take us back to that day or that time period. And so you were feeling shocked, you said. What other kinds of things were you feeling?
Well, like I mentioned, betrayal and just thinking things were one way when they really weren't. And like I said, it's just that immaturity of being a teenager and thinking that, when you're a teenager, you don't ever want to be different. You don't ever want to stand out. You want to be the same as all your friends, and so to have that, to be so different from all of my friends, it's just that age that you are, that I'm different, and that's a bad thing.
That was probably like the hardest time to find out something of that magnitude.
And then, like I said, with just, as you get older and you start to understand, and even, in my early 20s, starting to understand that it's a special thing, that I was wanted. I mean, really wanted, that they would bring me home with them and take care of me like I was their own. And so as I mentioned, I had a little health scare when my son was 1, and I reached out to social services.
Yeah, I kept saying, I'm losing track of time. So the whole time I wrote a little sheet out for Jenny, and I'm like, so 10 years ago, you wanted to know that who your birth parents were. And she was like, no, that's been 20 years ago. Her son is now 22. So I'm losing time here. So 22 years ago.
Well,
or so.
Time does fly. So so I reached out to social services to get the non-identifying information that I could surrounding my adoption, where they have interviewed the family, my birth mother, her parents, and the circumstances around my adoption. And so they sent me this transcript. And I remember standing in my kitchen reading this transcript about what took place around my birth and my mother giving me up. And it said in there that my mother had given up a daughter in November of '69, and then I was born in March of '71.
So here you are, and you recognize from this transcript, you didn't get much. I know the backstory of this, so you didn't get a lot of information from that transcript. But the one thing you did get is, okay, I have a half-sister or a full sister. Yeah. So the question is, which one? Somewhere, potentially.
Right. Yes. So because we were so close in age, I'm thinking she's probably a whole sister,
Right.
So this is 1999, and I know that I have a whole or a half sister by by my mother. But also in that transcript, it said that my birth father had a 6-year-old son by a previous marriage. And so I know then I have at least a half-sister and a half-brother in my life, and that my birth mother also had a brother. So I have an uncle. And, you know, all of a sudden I go from looking for my birth mother to looking for a birth father and a half-sister and a half-brother and an uncle. And, this, you know, it just became really real that beyond the birth mother, I have this family.
So what I know about Jenny is this is sounding simple. Like, okay, all we have to do is just go find them, right? Just search for them. Mm-hmm. But there was some trouble with that. So what was the problem?
Well, as I mentioned, you know, closed adoptions are sealed in our state. The records are sealed in Raleigh. And so it's private investigators, or it's getting lawyers to go petition the courts to have these records open. But then if I were to petition the court, and on the backside, my birth mother not having done the same, they still probably wouldn't have let me have the information if she hadn't been looking for me. So
you're praying this whole time,
yes,
way back from
way back, 1999. Yes.
That you're praying, dear God, help me to find these people.
Yes.
Right now, it's these people, not just mom and dad. It's whoever you can.
And not just that, but I then was praying, I hope they have had as good a life as I've had.
Isn't that awesome?
I hope that they've been as happy as me. They've had parents as good as mine. I hope that they've had the same church
Of course, if you watch our sister show, God's Way to Heaven, Jenny has been singing with me and Mama when Mama was alive since she was a little girl. Jenny, both of us have been singing with Mama. And Jenny now I'm not singing much now, but Jenny's now singing as a regular on the program. So you've been very active in church since you were born.
Right. Well, your dad became pastor
when we were 4.
Yeah, so 1975 he became pastor, and we've
or
been
5. We're telling our ages, and I try not to do that. I try to say I'm 26, so y'all keep I'm 26. Never mind these dates.
Yes. So yes, I've been in this church with you and your parents and my parents, and I mean, this was our family church, so I've been in it, and so I was praying that I was, you know, let them have had the blessings that I've had, and then, you know, I started really realizing that God had His hand on my life from the beginning, to have put me with my parents, to have brought me up in church, to have accepted Him as my Savior. And I was just praying those things for my family I didn't know yet. Those were the main things.
Wow. This is parts I didn't know. So this
Because, you know, then I was like, you know, how did I get so lucky or so blessed to have been placed where I was? I could have lived any kind of life, you know, if my mother had tried to raise me too. So fast forward several years, because, you know, the internet came about, and, you know, I was doing these online searches and these free kind of searches, and it just, nothing was turning up until a friend mentioned that I should do this DNA test. And she and her father had done it because he was adopted. And I said, well, okay, you know, I have tried everything else. So early January 2017, I did a DNA test, and nothing really came of it. Listed some cousins, third, fourth, you know, millions of fourth and fifth cousins. And I said, okay, God, well, I tried that door, and that's not the door you want me to go through yet.
That's the other thing we talked about next week, because I know where this is going. So I'm going to tell you that, you know, sometimes God uses what's right before you to work out your miracle. We talked about that last time. Sometimes God doesn't make like a miracle come from nothing. A lot of times He uses what you have right before you to work your miracle. So I'm kind of giving Jenny's thing away. Go ahead.
So I just let it go, and I said, okay, you know, when you're ready for me to walk through whatever door, or you open the door, I'm going to be willing to go through it. So about a year later, I get a message through Ancestry DNA, or the test I'd done, from someone that said that she had just gotten her DNA test back and that we were paired as a close relative, and that she was adopted and she was looking for her birth family. And she'll tell you that.
Well, you're giving away our surprise.
Well,
Well, I've already given away one surprise, so she's okay to do that. And since she's done that, let's go ahead and tell everybody and bring her up.
okay, so after we messaged back and forth, I said, that's amazing, and I'm adopted too. I'm looking for my birth family too. Do you mind me asking when and where you were born? And I said, because my mother gave up a daughter in November of '69. And she messaged right back and she said, my birthday is November 21st, 1969.
Wow.
And the information that she knew about her birth, I knew because it was in my information, and we realized that we were half sisters.
Wow. And so our second special guest, we got lots of special guests today, at least two, is right in our studio, and Jenny's sister Beth is here with us. So Beth is going to come and we're going to meet Jenny's half-sister that she has. So how long have y'all been known about each other? 3 years?
Well,
Time is passing quickly.
Well, I knew about her since 1999, but since
Right.
I'm younger, she was born first. She didn't know about me
Wow.
until she did the DNA test.
Wow. You didn't even know you had a half-sister till the DNA
No
test.
idea.
Wow. Wow. So this is Beth. This is Jenny's half-sister, and we're going to let her, you remember that Jenny's prayer was not only that she would find her family. Jenny brought Kleenex up here and said, I'm going to cry. And I was like, maybe I should bring some, and I'm about to cry, so I should have brought some. But we're going to let Beth tell her part of the story, because Jenny's prayed that number one, she's going to find her family, and number two, that they're going to have as good a life as her. So Beth, tell us about your life.
My parents had told me when I was 3 or 4 years old, I remember them sitting me down one night after church and telling me that
After church, y'all heard that.
and that they explained it, that, you know, I was chosen by them to be part of their family. And my dad always I've always remembered the story. He said that they got a call that there was a little girl available, and they went and met me and said I was crying when they walked in the room, and my dad said, do you want to go home with us? And they said I started laughing.
Oh.
So I'd always known my friends, you know, right at church, they knew, and so it was just a normal part of my life. But milestones, like when you turn, you know, 10 or 13, or when I turned 16, I would think, you know, wonder if my birth mother realizes how old I am today. Wonder if she knows. And then after my 18th birthday, then there's graduation, and wonder if she's realizing I'm graduating high school. And so I learned that you could do the non-identifying information, and I did that. And then, I don't know, I think when I turned 21, my parents have always been very supportive, and my mom's like, let's just go to Alamance County to the high schools. And so we went to all the high schools in Alamance County looking through yearbooks just for somebody that might look like me or resemble me. And we had the age from the non-identifying information to go on, and we just searched and didn't really have any luck. We went to the Register of Deeds, and there, the lady working there, we thought we might have found something, but it had a line drawn through it, but I asked for it anyway, and then she's like, oh, you can't see that.
Oh.
And, you know, rips it out in front of me. So years passed, I got married, I was, you know, having kids, and I'm thinking, you know, what am I passing on to them medically? Because you go to the doctor and they're like, has anybody, and you're like, I don't know. You just stop them. You're adopted. You don't have that history. And so, you know, I'd see the ancestry DNA, and I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Well, a lady that lived near me, she did it. She did it to figure out, like, you know, was she Irish or whatnot. So I'm like, you know, what the heck? Might as well try it. And that was January of 18. And so sent it off, got my results, had her as like, it gives you all different options. But when I got her message back asking about November 69, I was at work. My parents wouldn't answer the phone. My husband wouldn't answer the phone. My best friend wouldn't answer the phone. I had to go into another office, and this one lady, I told her what I had done, and I'm dragging her outside on the porch, and I'm like, read this. I just printed it off. Read this. And she's reading it. I said, do you know when my birthday is? I'm not even sure I know now, And so I immediately sent it back, and I got it memorized. But I said, I don't know if you're ready for this, but my birthday is November 21st, 1969. And one of the things, it said that I could have been her aunt, or we could have been niece, or it was all different. I said, or even like first cousins. I said, I think we're sisters, or half sisters, or we're sisters.
Didn't y'all actually do a test later that verified you were half sisters? Did you do a second test?
We did the 23andMe last summer.
Last summer.
And that verified that you were half sisters.
Yeah.
But everything that we knew surrounding her birth was in my information. So when she would talk, I would say, yep, I knew that.
So let's talk for just a minute. So right now, I told you that sometimes you just have to hold on for your prayer to answer. So about this time, Jenny has held on for how many years? Do that quick math. Jenny's good at math usually.
Like 29 years?
29 years. She's been holding on to that prayer. And so here she is, and we've got half the prayer answered because she's found her sibling. But then we got that other half, because you prayed that she would have as good a life, be in church, know the Lord. So tell us about that, Beth.
I have always been in church. I'm one of those drug kids.
We were all like that.
If the doors were open, you were drugged there.
Yes.
And I've passed that on to my children. They'll testify that you're in church when the doors are open. If there's a church function, you're there. My dad, he's been a deacon, how they cycle through, but he's been a deacon forever. My mom sang in the choir. My grandmother was in church there. She sang in the choir. Sunday school teachers, church librarian. They had a natural born son. He's 8 years older than me. He's in church there too, and always in church. Maybe not always living like I should, but always in church. And the Lord, thankfully, is so merciful. And, I also had the prayer. I had no idea I had a sibling. I'm not even sure if I would wonder if I do, but where she knew and I didn't. But I had always prayed that, I'd always search for a birth mother, or thought, that's what I'm looking for. I want to know. And then sometimes you're like, well, Lord, why don't she just seek me out, But it's always been a prayer that I would want her to have as good a life or not better, that her choice for me also gave her a better life. Because I could have not been raised by better people or had a better life. It was, the Lord's blessing on that. And I would only pray that would be for her to have the same. And in fact, my mother has always said that if she ever got to meet her, she was going to hug her and thank her for the huge gifts she gave away. So
now I'm going to be crying. We could do that too, hug for Jenny.
Yes.
For the huge gift we've been given our family. So go ahead, sorry.
So I've just, that was
You'll
in the
have.
search. So that's just, I've always prayed that, and another preacher friend of ours, he said, because they, like you said, there's like lawyers and there's people that will charge you crazy prices and say, we can find your birth family, but you don't know if it's legit. And this one preacher friend of ours, he says, I compare adopted children to being like Moses put in the bulrushes. And he said, if it is meant for you to find your family, it will not be hardships and cost you a ton of money. It'll come easy.
Oh.
So when I done the DNA test, I just actually had started a new job with new money, and I thought, hey, this is not going to come out of my family budget. It's extra right now, so that's why I did it.
So here we are. We've got 4 minutes to kind of tell you the rest of this story, so we got to tell it quick. So right now we've got Prayers answered on both sides. Jenny's holding on for 29, 30 years, and now her prayer is being answered on the whole prayer, pretty much, is being answered, except we haven't found birth mom and dad and maybe that brother. So you got to go quick because you have 4 minutes.
Okay, so we, this past fall, had this wonderful woman help us out of the goodness out of her heart, because she enjoyed doing it, help us really dig into our trees, our family trees and ancestry, and our DNA test. And within, 3 weeks, I would say, the first week she found Beth's birth father. He's still living. And the second week, I think she found my birth father, who was not living. Unfortunately, he passed away in 2013, but found my half-brother, who is living about an hour from here. His name is Mike, and we've met, and he's wonderful.
And he's in church.
He is in church and loves Jesus, and I couldn't be more happy. And when we talked, he said, I just want you to know that our dad was saved and he's in heaven. And that was the best gift he could give me. And then within the next week, our friend found who our birth mother is.
Wow.
And unfortunately, she passed away in 2018 at the age of 65. So Beth and I met for the first time in April of 2018, and then our mother passed away in November 2018. And we found all this out last fall. But with that, our mother had another daughter. So we have a half-sister that we've not met.
Wow.
So all of that.
So we say all this just to say God answers prayers. And so sometimes you've got to be persistent, and sometimes you've just got to hold on. Now, like always, I want to give you the opportunity. There may be people who don't know the Lord. And really, that's the whole first step in having your prayers answered. You have to know Jesus. So if you don't know him, you can come to him today, ask him into your heart. You can say a prayer. You can say a prayer to yourself. It doesn't have to be the prayer that I lead you in, but I'm going to lead you in a prayer today. You can say the prayer out loud or to yourself. Just say, Dear Jesus, I'm sorry for my sins. I believe that you lived, that you died, that you rose again for me. I believe that what you did on the cross was enough to save me, to heal me, to deliver me. I ask that you come into my life, and I commit myself to you today, Jesus. In your name I pray, amen. If you said that prayer, that's the best decision you'll ever make. Now you have to really start walking with them. You have to start following them, start reading your Bible, and who wouldn't want to? And you have to start praying, because there is power in prayer. And my two guests today prove that. In 37 seconds, that's what we get. I am so thankful y'all came. Give us one final last word to my friends out there.
Yeah, don't give up praying. I mean, it may not seem like the end is in sight, but he is working everything for your good. If you're his child, he is working everything for your good.